This is the Gens Weekly Recap presented by Rapid Hockey Academy. Here is Matt Sossler.
Hey Gens fans, and welcome to this Gens Weekly Recap. I'm your host and the voice of the Gens, Matt Sossler. Each team had a very busy weekend of hockey. The NAHL spent their weekend up in Maine. Let's take a look at what went down.
Looking to pick up their first win of the new year, Dylan Schuett got the Generals on the board first 2 minutes and 54 seconds into the game. However, Cannon Green responded for the Nordiques at the 10:41 mark to even the score at 1 apiece. The Generals reclaimed the lead just over 2 minutes later when McCanny found the back of the net, yet Maine tacked on the last 2 goals of the period to take a 3-2 lead into the first intermission. In the second period, after a lot of back and forth action, Bobby Metz evened the score at 2 apiece, heading into the final frame, and in the final frame, Maine snagged the game winner at the 6:30 mark to give the Nordiques the series opener. A look at some arithmetic, Dylan Schuett and Liam McCanny each with a goal and an assist, Aiden Kern with 2 assists, and Bobby Metz picked up a goal. Jonathan Young and Adam Smith also had an assist each. The very next day, looking to nail their second straight win, the Nordiques picked up right where they left off as a Tyler Gallen power play goal got them on the board at the 5:26 mark to take a 1-0 lead. In the second period, Bobby Metz evened the score at 1 at the 5:33 mark. That score held for the rest of the frame. In the third period, both goalies stood tall, forcing overtime. In the decisive period, Cooper Swift tipped home an Isaiah Fox shot past Hugo Haas, and the Nordiques walked away with the OT victory. A look at some stats, Bobby Metz with a goal, Dylan Schuett and Aiden Kern each with an assist, and Hugo Haas stellar in between the pipes with 45 saves. On Sunday, looking to get the series sweep, Maine struck first, courtesy of Stephen Owens, to take a 1-0 lead. In the second stanza, the Generals tied the game at 1 off of an Isaac Novak goal. Both goalies stood tall for the rest of regulation and in overtime after a costly penalty by Maine's Malcolm Demers. Ricky Boyson buried the game winner to give the Generals the OT victory. A look at some stats, Kyle Schroeder with 2 assists, Isaac Novak and Ricky Boyson each with a goal, Alex Davis and Jonathan Young each with an assist, and Anton Castro made 32 saves. I caught up with head coach Brian Erickson, forward Kyle Schroeder, and defenseman Bobby Metz after the 3-game set. Here are their thoughts. Also, here is Kyle Schroeder's thoughts on his 2 assists. As for Schroeder, he said, "I thought we set the tone right from the drop of the puck. We battled hard for the whole 60 minutes. We competed, and we didn't give up after they scored the first one. I thought the boys had a great response to that goal. Castro shut the door for us. Everybody bought in, and we fought right back. We stayed dialed in on the process, kept chipping away, and got rewarded with the win. There's a lot of good things we can take away from that win and continue to build off of going forward." Bobby Metz saying, "One thing I thought I noticed is that we were resilient. It's not easy to come back and to do it against a team like Maine after a tough weekend in Johnstown. It's a good testament to our competitive level. We got pucks deep and kept it simple. That's what we needed to do, and we did it." And here is what head coach Brian Erickson had to say.
Yeah, I thought probably one of our more complete games in a while. I thought we ran our systems well. I thought we kept their chances to the outside. I thought Castro did a good job in that. Honestly wish we buried a lot more of our grade A's. I thought the game had a chance to be a little bit more lopsided in our favor, but, they don't ask by how many, they just ask for the win. And ultimately, I'm happy with it, but once again, it's one game, and if you don't build off of the positives, then it's not really that important. If we can build off what we did well, then it's then it's a big win. If we don't build off of it, then it's just a Sunday in Maine.
Yeah, and going off of that, Kyle Schroeder had a really, really good game. And you mentioned, I believe it was before, or it was actually earlier this week, you mentioned how he's one of the guys you can always count on to, bring the energy and be ready to go. How was that evident this afternoon?
I thought he was great. I thought he buzzed around. He was very physical. I know he's small in stature, but he plays big. And, he set the tone for us. And I think you saw in that first shift of the game with him, Kiefer, and Novak, we set the tone pretty well. Yeah, we got put back on our heels a couple minutes later, but, at least it showed, hey, listen, the forecheck's going to work, our speed's going to work, our physicality's going to work. We just need to get back to that. And, he sets a great example for the rest of the guys.
And one more guy I want to briefly talk about is Bobby Metz. He had a stellar series, picking up a point in all 3 games, but overall, just looking at him, he's, even you see it in the rink, he's literally everywhere, can come out of the corner behind you. What are some of your thoughts on his play this weekend?
I thought he had, 2 clutch goals this weekend, and I thought that, he played really well today. Got turned a couple times and, didn't love a couple passes, but overall used his legs really well to help set the pace. And, Metz is a big kid that we, rely on heavily, and we're going to continue to rely on.
And lastly, heading into this week in practice and, given the situation, whenever your next game may be, what's the goal to build off of this weekend?
Yeah, we got a little break here, which is just, 1 weekend off, which is nice because, we didn't really get a New Year's break. We didn't have a long one. So to give the kids a little bit of time, we'll give them Monday off and we'll get back on it Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. But we have a lot of work to do, and today, even though we want to, it just proved that we do, and sometimes it's good to show video of a game you won and also highlighting the things you need to work on. So, it's really just get back to work. Probably Tuesday we'll have a little blue versus white scrimmage. We'll have some fun, but under a, competitive format. Wednesday we'll probably have a battle day, really get after the kids physically and mentally. And then, Thursday we'll start preparing for New Jersey for the following week, and I think that if we can do that and we can build off of it, then it'll be great. So once again, it's one game. You can't get too high after one loss. You can't get too high after one win.
Awesome. Yeah, congrats on the win. Thank you so much, and safe travels.
All right. Thanks, Matt.
Yeah. Thank you.
The NA3HL Gens were also in action. They took a trip down to the Lone Star State. Let's take a look at what happened there.
In the first game way back a week ago, the Generals in their first game since the holiday break got right back off to where they started. In the first period was the Peyton Felix show. He scored a hat trick with the third goal coming at the 16:38 mark to give the Generals a 3-0 lead before Mid-Cities tacked on their lone goal of the game with 1.5 minutes remaining in the period to cut the deficit to 3-1 after the first intermission. In the second stanza, the Generals broke out of the gate, scoring just 45 seconds in, courtesy of James Clark. Nicholas Oborn and Carson Asper added lamplighters later in the frame to give the Generals a 6-1 lead heading into the second intermission. In the final frame, Tyler Kaminsky and Deacon Moore added their names to the score sheet. Carson Asper and Nicholas Oborn each scored their second of the game as the Generals opened 2021 with a commanding victory. The very next day, the Generals took on East Division rival Long Beach in a doubleheader. In game number 1, Long Beach got off to a good start, getting the first 2 goals of the game. However, the Generals responded late in the opening frame when Sean Gorman found twine to cut the deficit to 2-1 heading into the first intermission. In the second period, the Generals offense woke up, scoring 3 goals under 2 minutes apart when Deacon Moore found the back of the net to even the score at the 5:06 mark. Carson Asper and Sean Gorman would follow to give the Generals a 4-2 lead. Long Beach would get a tally of their own to cut the deficit to 1. However, Ben Pizzameni snagged the insurance goal with less than a minute to play in the second period to give the Generals the 5-3 lead. Both goalies stood tall in the final frame to continue the Generals' perfect run down south. Just a few hours later, well, double the games, double the goals. Hours after taking game 1 of the doubleheader 5-3, the Generals broke out the offense again. They got on the board first courtesy of James Clark at the 9:16 mark. Carson Asper followed around 7 minutes later to enhance the lead to 2-0. Nicholas Oborn joined the scoring parade just 3 minutes after that to give the Generals a 3-0 advantage. Long Beach, however, snagged a buzzer-beating lamplighter to cut the deficit to 3-1 heading into the first intermission. In the second period, the Generals added 4 insurance goals courtesy of Nick Racker, Tyler Kaminsky, Peyton Felix, and Ben Pizzameni to take a 7-1 lead into the final frame, and in the final frame, Tyler Kaminsky snagged his second goal of the game at the 4:06 mark. Long Beach responded with just over 2 minutes later to cut the deficit to 8-2. However, the Generals kept their foot on the gas when Pizzameni and Oborn added their second tallies of the game to get the Generals into double digits and extend their win streak to 8 games. On Friday, the Generals facing off for the first time this year against Texas. The Generals got off to a slow start when Texas scored the first 2 goals of the game to take a 2-0 lead heading into the intermission. In the second period, the Generals cut the deficit in half off of a Nicholas Oborn goal. However, Texas got it back in the final minute of the period to enhance the lead back to 2 goals going into the final frame. And in the final frame, Texas struck first to enhance the lead to 4-1. The Generals did respond with a Deacon Moore goal, however, it wasn't enough as Texas snapped the Generals' win streak at 8 games. On Saturday, looking to get back in the win column, the Generals got off to a strong start against Mid-Cities. They got the first 2 goals from James Clark around 5 minutes apart at the 5:15 and 10:13 mark. 2 minutes later at the 12:57 mark, Mid-Cities would cut the deficit to 2-1. That score held until the first intermission. In the second stanza, each side found the back of the net once. Nick Racker found twine at the 14:25 mark. Mid-Cities' Hayden Russell responded at the 19:21 time stamp to cut the deficit to 3-2. In the final frame, it was all Generals. They scored 4 unanswered, Ben Pizzameni and Carson Asper getting 2 apiece. On Sunday, the Generals looking to get a win in their final game in the Lone Star State versus the Texas Roadrunners. In the first period, Deacon Moore got the Generals on the board first at the 16:27 mark. However, Texas responded quickly to even the score at 1 heading into the first intermission. In the second period, Drew Schemmel gave the Generals the lead once more. However, keeping with the theme of the game, Texas responded less than 3 minutes later to tie the game at 2 apiece. That score held for the rest of the period, and in the final frame, both goalies stood tall until Garrett Wilderman snagged the game winner at the 19:09 mark to put Texas on top for good. A look at some stats from that game. Deacon Moore, Drew Schemmel, a goal each. Carson Asper, Nicholas Oborn, Tyler Kaminsky, and Sean Gorman, each with an assist. Patrick Colburn with 33 saves. The Generals are still in first place in the East Division. Deacon Moore extended his point streak to 8 games. He also leads all NA3HL defensemen in points. And in addition to all of that, the Generals are second in the NA3HL in goal differential. And for Deacon Moore, he took home a star of the week. Carson Asper was tabbed the runner-up. And now a look to the week ahead. Both teams getting a break this weekend before resuming play the week of the 22nd. That's going to wrap up this edition of the Gens Weekly Recap. For everyone here at the Northeast Generals, I'm Matt Sossler. Thank you for tuning in to this Gens Weekly Recap.